Only cowards fear World War III. Those are the words of famous military general Sean Penn. You might know him from the famous World War II battle at Ridgemont High. More on the great general's words in a minute. But first, this Babylon Bee headline sums up our corporate media over the past 24 hours. Take a look at this. Journalists anxiously wait for email from Biden administration with today's instructions. I love this. Of course, it literally is satire, but it's true, right? It's totally true. America's corporate media works at the pleasure of the regime. And get ready if you live in the United States, because the corporate mainstream media is about to unleash a whole lot of fake news about the war in Ukraine, starting with a huge PR push for Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky. So Zelensky coming to Washington, D.C., of course. There he is in his T-shirt. He got a new green T-shirt. And he came there in order to ask for more money and more weapons for NATO's war against Russia. And the media are doing their part in a coordinated PR push for the war. So at the exact moment that the United States Congress is facing a debt ceiling battle and the U.S. is totally out of money, the media narrative is this, that Ukraine could win, but they're struggling against the Russian forces. The way that they win is a big injection of money and weapons from the U.S. and from Europe. To achieve this goal, the print media, of course, will run a series of fake articles talking about Russia's brutal invasion. Just like this. So here we go. This is the Telegraph today. Mood sours in Ukraine as it braces for a long and bloody war. The published feature pieces like this about all of Ukraine's war dead. They'll show graveyards, tombstones. They'll explain that the United States is letting these men die unless we give them more money. Mouthpiece of the deep state, of course, is CBS News, and they're leading this charge. Yesterday, they started their morning on Face the Nation with actor Sean Penn, pushing for much of our needed money and military power in Ukraine, explaining that the U.S. hasn't done much to support Ukraine. This is his great thing that he's really upset about. That, we've been too cautious and we haven't done enough, and this is his greatest regret. Just a reminder, we've already spent over $300 billion. The United States and Europe combined, over $300 billion, according to the numbers out today. And that's, in my estimate, a very, very conservative estimate, because that's really just since the war began. But as Victoria Nuland and NATO has admitted, we've been spending billions of dollars in Ukraine since 2014. So it is not just the past year and a half. It's all of the money that's been preemptive to bring us into war. But we're too cautious, according to Sean Penn.
It's my absolute feeling that the caution with which the United States has pledged support, which seemed, in my reading of February 2022, was like a lean on in the fear of nuclear conflict. Something I think all of us should look very carefully at and understand that, of course, is possible, and that's to be concerning. The likelihood is extremely low, and as one of our witnesses in the film says, are we going to let a gangster with nuclear weapons dictate the way we live?
Yeah. Which gangster are we talking about here?
Yeah, he didn't mention Biden, but I assume he's talking about Putin. Okay. I assume he's talking about Putin. But are we going to let a gangster... So it's kind of funny, because here you have Vladimir Zelensky, who literally is threatening Europe. Over the past few days, in an interview with The Economist magazine, Zelensky has basically said, unless Europe steps up and puts more weapons and more money into Ukraine, then all those refugees you guys are helping out with, what's to say that they're not going to get angry and potentially, carry out some, I don't know, maybe terrorist acts? He didn't say the word terrorism, but of course we know what he meant, right? Like, what happens if you abandon all of those Ukrainians that are refugees now throughout Europe, scattered around? Like, we'll just activate them like some sort of drones? Like, they'll just pop up one day and do the bidding of carrying out terrorist attacks?
You could look at that as him putting a hit piece on every Westerner.
I guess so. So who's the madman then? Who are you talking about precisely? And too cautious, Sean Penn? We've been too cautious. We just haven't sent enough weapons. Are you kidding me? What do you want? You want nuclear weapons there? You want to send nukes there is basically what you're asking for, because a number of members of Congress have asked to send nukes to Ukraine. Yeah, let's give them nuclear weapons. That'll work out really well. Just like the jets and the HIMARS and everything else that we've sent.
You're getting depleted uranium now. So if you want dead children and fallout to people in that area forever, you got that too.
Permanent cancer.
If your wish list is total destruction of that region, you are getting it. So,
but don't worry. The Pentagon says, and Corinne Jean-Pierre says that depleted uranium, like it's fine. Just the cancer is not an issue.
And when she told us last year it wasn't fine, she didn't mean it. It was a joke. Sometimes I tell a joke about weapons not being bad.
That's a whole joke at the White House. So Sean Penn also said that he wanted to melt down his Academy Award and turn it into bullets that Ukraine could use against Russia. Okay. Then last night, CBS rolled out even bigger guns because this was part 2 of their propaganda. So in the morning on Face the Nation, they had Sean Penn with his whole Ukraine documentary. And then at nighttime, it was CBS 60 Minutes, which had a big interview, of course, with Zelensky himself. And in less than 2 years of this war, Zelensky has given more interviews than all of the leaders involved in World War II during the 6 years of war. Just think about that for a moment. Churchill, Roosevelt, all of them. No interviews compared to what this guy has done. So 60 Minutes used to be the gold standard of broadcast journalism. Now it's simply a tool of the regime. And I just have to say, last night when they started off this, first of all, let me just set the stage here. CBS 60 Minutes, for whatever reason, will copyright strike our channel. I don't know what it is. It's 60 Minutes specifically. We can never show clips of their show. And they will take us down if we show anything of it. I don't know what it is about that show. We can't do it. If we do it, we get copyright strikes. It's exactly what happens. So anyway. So
we'll save you the pain of this love letter to war.
Yeah. But
and I will summarize.
What I will do is Scott Pelley. I will do my best Scott Pelley impression. And the way that he started off this piece last night was showing Zelensky sitting there as they're getting ready for the interview. And I'm going to show you a couple of still images from it. And I'm going to read Scott Pelley's transcript. This is word for word his transcript. I copied the transcript word for word. This is exactly how he introduced Zelensky last night in this piece. Okay. We first met Zelensky not long after the invasion, when his office was a blacked out bunker.
That's pretty good.
A year and a half later, we noticed a difference. As we were setting up the interview, the former actor used his talent to mask the strain. He smiled at a compliment to his wife, and then instantly he seemed pulled beneath a depth that no one can know. We don't know what he was thinking. It looked like empathy for the lost and for those who might be saved.
Oh, really? But what about the people who are being pulled off the streets right now and conscripted into war who had medical clearance because they were too ill? He wants them to be dragged into. He's not worried about saving them. He's worried about dragnetting them. Yeah. Are you doing your homework, Scott Pelley? What the heck is that? I'm struggling to keep this PG.
How exactly is that journalism? I'll ask you. CBS News literally making shit up. Looks like that empathy for the lives lost. Like, how the hell do you know?
And waxing poetic about his sentiment. What the F?
That looks like empathy for the lives lost. I mean, how do you know? Maybe he ate some bad sushi and it was coming back up on him. He like looked down off camera. We're not starting the interview yet. I had some bad lunch. At the beginning of the piece, he also mentions that he was an actor. He was an actor using his skills to put on a brave face, he says. This is corporate media journalism in 2023. And meanwhile, to what Natali was just talking about, back in Ukraine, video over the past 24 hours shows, once again, showing military recruiters grabbing men off the streets, forcing them to go onto the front lines in order to be killed by NATO. Here's a new recruit, clearly happy that he was just walking down the street when these thugs grabbed him and threw him into a wagon. Put him in there. You're going to war. NATO needs you. The few, the proud.
We need our bonus.
We need our NATO soldiers.
We got to hit our numbers. So I'm 16. Oh, well, that's okay.
And then last night at a bus stop, a man waiting for a bus, when a different mode of transport showed up to throw him into the meat grinder, you can hear the Ukrainian men actually yelling, "Hey, these people are worse than Russians," he says.
Стояв на зупинці, б'ють, пакують.
They got him when he tries to run away. You're going to war when NATO needs you. It's amazing. I wonder if they showed this on 60 Minutes.
You know, if I were to wax poetic about the sentiment going through Zelensky's mind right now, if I thought he were an empathetic being, I might say he's really worried about his soul review in the afterlife, having dragged all of these men to their premature death. That's how I would narrate that, Scott Pelley.
No, but instead it was, as we were setting up the interview, the former actor used his talent to mask the strain. He smiled at a compliment to his wife, and then instantly he seemed pulled beneath a depth that no one can know. We don't know what he was thinking. It looked like empathy for the lost and for those who might be saved.
I know how everyone
that?
can be saved right now with peace talks. Right now. That's all you have to do. End the interview and go to peace talks.
Who wrote that at 60 Minutes?
The Pentagon wrote that.
Sitting there with a friggin' typewriter, like, we don't know the depth. We don't understand the law. I mean,
you are doing a very good, Scott Pelley. You also have to sort of cross your hands to one side and lean over towards them. This is his body language, like that.
These fawning propaganda pieces. I mean, you're seeing it in print media. You're seeing it on your corporate media over the past, and you're going to see a lot more of it this week. So you guys are going to notice it. You're going to see it on CNN. You're going to see it all across Facebook. Your friends who are not enlightened, who are at least like not seeking the truth, are going to be sharing it. Yeah. In fact, hilariously, I won't name names, but someone sent a message to our family earlier today that said, "Hey, can you guys help? I have a brother-in-law who watched 60 Minutes last night and is now a Zelensky fan." We're like, "What? What?" Literally, that's what the propaganda is doing to people. It's wetting the whistle before someone arrives in the United States to ask for more money and more weapons. And here's CBS creating a piece of war propaganda.
Well, here's some cliff notes about that. Zelensky has been involved in terrorizing people in the Donbass since the Maidan coup, supported by the West. And Ukraine was told in 2014 to stop spending $1 million per day to terrorize people in your own country. That has continued. Once Russia moved in to make it stop, Ukraine acted like the innocents that had never been firing on anybody. We don't understand where this came from. And now we have Zelensky to prop up as the good guy, to pretend that there's not blood on their hands. Russia's holding the line for those people who voted to become a part of Russia in order to stop being terrorized by Ukraine. If Russia pulls those men away, those people go back to being terrorized as part of Ukraine's borders. So Ukraine is throwing innocent lives at that wall, knowing that it will not change. We've shown you the borderlines many times. It has not moved one single bit. So why are those men being dragged to their death? That's what you should tell your brother-in-law.
So back home, neocons like Mike Pence, running for president, by the way, to keep the war machine going.
Oh, yeah, him.
Mike Pence, reminding all of us that American forces will need to fight against Russia unless we pump them full of weapons and money.
I am convinced that if the Ukrainian military doesn't stop and repel that Russian invasion, it's not going to be too long before that Russian army crosses a border that our men and women in uniform are going to have to go and fight under our NATO treaty.
Yeah, so we will go. So we will send Americans to fight in NATO's war against Russia. That's exactly what they want, right? Tucker Carlson just a few weeks ago talked about the hot war that is coming. We know it's coming. They want war with Russia. 100% they do. They've been calling for it. This is why they won't let Trump become president. I'm telling you, this is why the deep state and the neocons do not want Trump in there. Exactly, because they want a guy like Mike Pence, pencil dick, who wants to push us into war. Now, not all Republicans are warmongers, and not all members of Congress are warmongers or weasels, just like the Democrats are, who become like the party of war all of a sudden. Remember, they were like the hippies, like peace, 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 and now they're fully involved in this. You have Anna Paulina. I want to give credit where credit is due. Anna Paulina Luna over the past 24 hours, saying that she will not vote to fund the U.S. government in this debt ceiling battle unless funding to Ukraine is finished. Good for her. I will call that out.
Yeah, and the Mary Poppins jacket. I love it.
Yeah. Stylish and anti-war.
Yes.
Good.
She's my new favorite.
I wasn't sure. I'm not sure if she stood up for ending war in Syria. I'll have to check her voting record on that. But
we'll
so I
pause
don't want
on
to
the
give too
favorite,
much
but the
too much
code is
credit.
my favorite.
But I will say, at least taking a stand against Ukraine funding for war, that's one good thing. This is an amazing piece of news that happened over the weekend as well. You have Jens Stoltenberg, of course, the head of NATO, coming out and saying, admitting what we've been saying here for a year and a half or longer, that this war, when they say, oh, this is a unprovoked war in Ukraine, that was a total lie. Of course, this has been going on since 2014, and the genocide that's been happening in the Donbass has been happening since 2014. Let's not forget that. So Jens Stoltenberg comes out and admits, finally, that this war is not unprovoked, and the whole reason that this war started is because of NATO's aggression and enlargement. Watch.
President Putin declared in the autumn of 2021, and he actually sent a draft treaty that he wanted NATO
how to prevent war?
To promise no more NATO enlargement.
Oh, you mean that would have prevented the war?
What he sent us.
Oh, okay.
And that was a precondition for not invade Ukraine.
Oh.
Of course, we didn't sign that.
Of course not.
Opposite happened. He wanted us to sign a promise never to enlarge NATO. He wanted us to remove our military infrastructure in all allies that have joined NATO since 1997, meaning half of NATO, all the Central and Eastern Europe. We should remove NATO from that part of our alliance, introducing some kind of E and B or second-class membership. We rejected that. So he went to war to prevent more NATO close to his borders. He has got the exact opposite. He has got more NATO presence in the eastern part of the alliance, and he has also seen that Finland has already joined the alliance, and Sweden will soon be a full member. This is good for the Nordic countries, it's good for Finland and Sweden, and it's also good for NATO, and it demonstrates that when President Putin invaded a European country to prevent more NATO, he's getting the exact opposite.
Do you understand the logic there?
We provoked him, but
he offered a draft of, we will not do that if you don't expand NATO to our doorstep, which is, by the way, what Bill Clinton had agreed to, which is what the charter in place has been since the 1950s, that it would not enlarge to their doorstep. So you violate that, and you continue on in violation of the agreement that you had, and right up to their doorstep. Again, just think for a second. If Russia had military bases in Mexico, in Canada, and they just kept moving closer and closer and closer and closer, what would we do? So it's hilarious that he finally admits that this was not an unprovoked war. Oh, we had a draft agreement of how to prevent the war, but we wouldn't agree to it. Of course we want NATO to expand. We want to use Ukraine in order to provoke Russia and expand NATO. That's exactly what it is. So Zelensky will be in Washington. He's there asking for more money. I wonder if he'll do another big joint session of Congress. He'll hold up another Ukrainian flag. Everyone will sign it. He'll do a big thing. He'll wear his T-shirt in Congress.
And Sean Penn will get more proxy TV interviews.
Oh, yeah.
That's a weird, bromance we all are asked to buy into.
We need him to get more Oscars. We need him to get more Oscars so they can get more bullets.
Right. He needs to win more Academy Awards.
Gold bullets.
So he can melt that down. Who knows what that's even made out of? But yeah, that's really great. That's great. That's good stuff.
We're assuming. And Graham points out that Sean Penn was also a big fan, I forgot about this, of Hugo Chavez. He had said that he is an inspiration. So his picker's off, I'm going to say.
Thank you so much for watching this segment here at Redacted. We are live every day at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, trying to share the stories that the mainstream media will not cover. You should also come over and join our community of Redacted Rebels over at redacted.inc. That's our private locals community where we can share exclusive content that we simply cannot share here on YouTube. Come over and join the rebellion together right now by going to redacted.inc. We'll see you next time.